Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need.
Hey everyone, it's Igor and Ryan here for Project Uproar here, where we are committed to helping you get closer to your ideal self every day. Today we're going to be talking about jobs, specifically dream jobs, and why so many people have trouble finding their dream job.
So this video was inspired by the School of Life book, A Job to Love, which is a book that I've been reading over the past week or so. And if you haven't checked out the School of Life, it's a prominent YouTube channel.
Really good.
I highly recommend it. We'll link it in the description. So in the book, the author Alain de Botton talks about how dream jobs are more of a recently cooked up phenomenon. What I mean by that is that before the Middle Ages, people such as the Romans considered jobs to be something that was not a pleasurable thing to do. For example, the Romans called jobs business, and their translation for the word business meant not enjoyable activity. So in the Middle Ages, there was a bit of a shift when it comes to dream jobs, especially with the growth of artists. And what happened was people started thinking about what's a possible route that I could make money and at the same time be fulfilled. And ever since the Middle Ages, this idea of fulfillment of money have grown. And especially today, whenever a high school student, a university student, a college student is thinking about what do I want to do in the future, a lot of times we're not only thinking about what will allow me to be financially secure or happy, but as well, what will bring me fulfillment in life.
And we are really in a good age for that because of the internet, right? People didn't have the internet before, but now with the internet, we literally have the possibility to, pretty much talk about anything, create a channel about anything that we like. Where before, lights out, there was no electricity, people couldn't really do that. So now we have more options, but it's interesting to note that, it wasn't always essential to have a job you really like and fulfilled you before to have a fulfilling life, right? Mostly people were doing sometimes jobs they didn't like, but they did other stuff that fulfilled them.
For sure. And I think what's limiting today is so often when we take job tests, especially in high school, I remember doing this, or meet with a career counselor if we're at university or college to talk about what options there are out there after we graduate. These tests and these people who we talk to often try to categorize us into jobs that already exist or that are already popular. And there is a bit of a danger to that in the sense that we live in an age right now where with technology, there are so many new jobs which haven't even been invented yet or haven't even been named. And 10 years ago, a job which may have been prominent then or popular then may not even exist right now or may be completely changed. And so I think the difficulty of relying on some of these job tests, some of these interest tests, meeting with someone, is that we only get a limited point of view. And so
Definitely.
I think something that we have to consider, especially if we're in high school, is, hey, we may get a career that's in the future that may not even exist. I know, for example, 10 years ago, if you said you could make money on YouTube or through a podcast, people would laugh at you and think, are you crazy? There's no way you can do that.
For sure. And I mean, it's beyond even the fact that even now, some people will be like, you're crazy if you want to be a YouTuber or whatever, because they don't think it's possible for everyone, right? But beyond that, before, when I was like just making YouTube videos for fun, there was literally no way to get paid for it way back, right? Not even way back, but like 10 years ago, I don't even think there was a way you're really making money. I didn't even know you could make money. So even while I was doing that, I had no idea that that could actually end up being a job, which it did with Anime Uproar. So that was really cool. And I just saw a post the other day talking about how Instagram and a lot of other social media that are prominent today and making people, money and that people are living off of them weren't even around in 2007. So it shows how fast moving things are. And I can promise you, when I was talking with my counselors, right, for high school about what I would do, definitely they did not suggest YouTuber.
And I think a lot of people you may talk to, you have to also consider their age and their experience, right? If you're talking to someone who is like 55 and older, their understanding of the world can be completely different from someone you may be talking to who's in their 20s and 30s. So I think that's something to keep in mind when you're talking to career counselors and trying to get advice to them. I think another issue when it comes to thinking about dream jobs is the idea that so often we think finding a dream job will take a short amount of time. We may go on a weekend retreat, we may make an appointment with someone, we may take a few tests, and we think after this process, we'll just know what we want to be. Well, so often, like anything else in life, this is a long process. This could take years. And so thinking we're going to find what we love in just a small amount of time, I think is not really that accurate. And so I think we have to be open to being patient and realizing how this is a journey. And just like anything in life, we may be presented with an obstacle that cuts off one path, and another path may stem from that obstacle that we faced. So I think that's important to realize that we have to take our time when it comes to realizing what our dream job may be. At the same time, I think we also think that dream jobs it's going to be some sort of passive experience that we face. For example, like a revelation. We'll just one day be walking and then we'll realize, hey, I want to be a lawyer. Well, here's the thing. Doesn't often work that way. In fact, I would argue the way that we find dream jobs is by acting. That is trying different things and realizing what we like, what we don't like, and making refinements that way. I think just waiting for this idea to pop into your head, just like you may think, oh, I want to be a writer and I'm just going to wait for the perfect idea to pop into our heads. It's not going to work. We have to keep trying different things, whether it be volunteer experiences or different types of work, and realize what we love and what maybe we realize we're not going to try again.
Exactly. And sometimes you have a vision of something and you're associating your dream job with that, and then you try it out and you see you don't actually enjoy the process. You just enjoyed in your mind what you pictured doing that job. So, for example, maybe with a writer, you were picturing the prestige and wealth that comes with Stephen King, for example, but you're not in love with the writing process. So that's going to make you miserable, because if you hate the writing process and you just want those external rewards, that's a recipe for a miserable life, right? So you'll never succeed that way. So the idea is, yeah, be open-minded. Try out stuff if you think you might like it, but also realize that just because you like the idea of something doesn't mean you're going to like it when you put it into practice. A lot of people like, for example, the idea of being entrepreneurs, right? Or building their own businesses. But what people don't realize is you got to make a lot of sacrifices, right? You got to live off of a lot less money for an extended period of time. You got to have patience. You got to deal with people ridiculing you and telling you that you're wasting your time and you won't make it. You have to deal with sometimes spending less time with friends or less time with boyfriends or girlfriends because you're so busy on the business and you really need to go hard in those first few years. Or maybe sometimes even longer. You have to accept the fact that your business may never take off, right? So there are a lot of risks and difficulty associated with actually being an entrepreneur and starting your own business. But people just kind of look at the successful people and they think, oh, I can do that, or that looks exciting. Yeah, it looks exciting 10 years down the road, right? And sometimes it happens quicker, sometimes it takes even longer. But the idea is, yes, you have to enjoy the process. You have to enjoy actually working a lot on this business, or else you're never going to be able to do it long term, because if you're doing it for the money, you're going to quickly realize that the money takes longer than you think. And so if you're not enjoying the process, you're going to quit before you actually start making money.
Yes, and I think you said something important there, and that is, I think we shouldn't be fixated on a particular job title, right? When we're young, we might have told ourselves, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. And we never question that. We just go along with it because that's the narrative that we constructed for ourselves. And we're just going to go along and jump through the next hoop to get there. But here's the thing, our values and our interests change over time. If we never stop to reflect, hey, I liked the idea of being a doctor when I was in grade 9, but right now I'm 30. Am I still the same person as I was in grade 9? No.
And what did you know about being a doctor in grade 9?
Exactly. So I think it's important to really not be so fixated on job titles. But I think something that's useful is think about what sort of skills and what sort of pleasures do you like right now. For example, if you're the type of person who likes to lead, Think about jobs which allow you to take a leadership role instead of saying, "Oh, I want to do this." I want to do a job that I get to take some sort of active role in.
Hmm.
If you like being isolated, think about jobs which require you to be in solitude a lot. So I think thinking about pleasures and skills rather than job titles is a really important thing to do when you're out there searching for your dream job.
Exactly. And I think what you said previously is super important that got to be open to the idea of branching off sometimes. So it might happen, you might get what you want, but not exactly the way you thought you would. So, for example, I liked even from grade eight, I really remember when I really enjoyed writing fiction. I enjoyed writing, I enjoyed the process. Then in high school and university, I started to enjoy writing essays, and I always enjoyed reading, and I enjoyed anime, for example. Those are stuff I enjoyed. But I didn't think that I would end up all coming together like it did for YouTube. And now for Anime Uproar, I watch anime, read manga, read philosophy books, and I kind of incorporate that all into my videos. And that's kind of my full time job right now. So back then, I definitely didn't see that coming. I knew I kind of wanted to be a writer since like grade 10 in some form, but I definitely didn't think that form would take writing YouTube scripts and then making YouTube videos on them. But that's what happened. And now I get to do what I really like doing. It's just not the way I initially expected to.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to that point of being patient when you're going through this process because there may be a possible career or occupation that doesn't exist now, but may exist 5, 10 years down the road for
Mhm.
you that will be the perfect fit. So I think patience is key there. And I really like how you said how you reflected on what you liked as a kid. And I think that's really important. I think we know more about ourselves than we may actually think. An exercise that the School of Life book talked about, which I think is very useful, is reflecting on your childhood, particularly when you were really younger, like I'm talking early elementary years, and really reflect on a day that maybe it was a rainy day, you couldn't go outside and play with your friends, and what were the sort of activities that you would do around the house to keep yourself entertained? Did you build Legos? Did you read? Think about some of those activities that you did, list some of them, and reflect on why they brought you excitement or why they brought you pleasure. And I think reflecting on those reasons may actually help you think about what sort of things you like. Because what happens is so often when we're children, we like certain things, we're interested in certain things, and then when it's time to quote unquote grow up and sort ourselves into a job, we put those interests on hold or we forget about them or we repress them and we try to market ourselves into the job market and try to develop like hard skills. And I think what's important is there's so much truth when it comes to things we enjoyed doing as kids that if we really reflect on what are some of those underlining skills and interests that I liked as a kid, do I still like those things? Did I kind of repress them to market myself into a job? Or can I go back to them and really think about how they reflect some of my interests today? So I think going back as a kid, reflecting, especially writing out those activities you might have liked, can have beneficial um, effects on your process right now.
Yeah, and the only thing I would like also say is it doesn't have to be early elementary school because I don't even remember what I was doing early elementary school. It can be elementary school, high school. Like think about throughout your life what you enjoy doing. It doesn't have to be necessarily when you were really really young, but that could help too. You could even ask people who knew you then what you enjoyed doing and stuff like that.
Writing down a bunch of jobs that you think you may want to do, these could be possible list of like 5 dream jobs, and really reflect about what got you excited about each of the jobs. So, for example, one dream job that I had before was being a lawyer. And what I did was I wrote it down and I really reflected on, well, why would I want to be a lawyer? And when I really reflected, I realized, oh, well, I watched some TV shows with some lawyers in them, and these lawyers are really confident people, great speakers. Therefore, I just want to be a lawyer.
So was it Suits?
Possibly. So here's the issue. When you realize that you're creating a mental leap, that the reason why you chose to be, for example, a teacher was because, oh, you watched someone helping someone on the street, and you're like, oh, that's great. I'd love to help someone. I should just be a teacher. we should really reflect about those mental leaps because we may realize that we're choosing a job path just because of some vague idea or skill that's associated with that job path. I think it's important to really reflect, okay, well, it's great that this job may have one particular aspect to it, but there's so many other ones. And what I learned myself about being a lawyer is that it's way more than just getting in front of a courtroom and speaking confidently and writing documents. There's so many other things, like you have to be in an office for a lot of times more than 40 hours a week. You have to deal with tough calls that a lot of people wouldn't find or that appealing. And so I realized when I got the whole picture that, yeah, I made a mental leap. I realized I liked one particular character from a show, and because of that, I wanted to be that character, be that kind of heroic lawyer. And I realized, yeah, that's not really an accurate depiction of a dream job that's suitable for myself.
Harvey Specter. So yeah, you really need to look at stuff you really enjoy doing and stuff you like doing. And even if you think you might like something, try it out and don't beat yourself up if you don't like it as much as you did. You can try different things. I really like the idea of working from anywhere and the idea that you could travel while doing your work. And writing went along with that, like being a fiction writer, for example, you could do it. But also YouTube goes along with that, right? As long as you got a laptop, I can do that too. So it's just the idea of figuring out what you truly love to do and trying to create a job where you can actually monetize it and live off of it. And you have to decide what's important. For the first few years, are you willing to live off of, less money, drive an old car, not spend money on clothing and stuff like that? Or are you more committed to, I prefer comfort, my job, what I do is not really that important, then maybe you're okay with the job you have now, right? So it all depends on where your priorities are, what you prioritize over something else, and you just want to figure out what works for you.
I know for myself as a teacher, if I judge my job based on my first year of teaching, I'm not going to really have an accurate understanding about whether I actually want to be a teacher. My first year was a very rough year. I had a very tough class, and I had a lot of sleepless nights because of the issues that happened in the classroom. And if I thought to myself, well, my first year was really tough, I'm going to grow to hate this job, I wouldn't be in the field today. And I've had a lot of great experiences that have come after my first year. And I was glad that I stuck to it, that I was patient, because it goes to show, yeah, there's growing pains in jobs and it'll take a while to get adjusted to it. So I think be patient in your job is one thing. Another thing is if you're in a job you hate, really reflect about why you got into that job. So you may reflect and realize the reason I got into this job is because I wanted to please my mom or my dad or my uncle, because maybe they're a lawyer, they're a teacher, they're a doctor, and I want to do what they did, or I want to kind of like outdo what they did. I want to make more money than them. And if
Or
that's,
even they want you to have like one of those secure jobs, right?
yeah,
So they kind of push that on you,
yeah.
right?
So I think if you reflect and you realize the reason why I'm doing this is for some reason associated with my parents, I think, yeah, you may have to rethink why you're in that job, which will be very difficult, but I think is necessary because here's the thing, in 20 years, will it really matter that the reason you're in this job is because you wanted to please your mom and your dad? No, you're going to be living a miserable life. So you have to reflect on, is that a contributing reason? And I think another thing to think about, this is what the School of Life book talked about, was if one of your relatives, such as your mom, your dad, your grandfather, lived a very kind of insecure life when it came to their job, maybe they went from job to job, they didn't have any benefits. A lot of times what happens is kids, to try to make up for that, they try to find a job that's secure, that has benefits. But what often happens is they may not actually love the job. They're doing it as a way to make up for the fact that their parents did not find a secure job, maybe is living in some sort of low income housing, and you want to try to make up for that. So, again, just because maybe your parents or people down your family line struggled financially doesn't mean you should just try to make it up to find a secure job that you don't really like, just to say, oh, like I found security, I'm able to pay my bills, because again, that won't necessarily lead to a happy life. Maybe it will if you really love it, but if you're doing it just for the sake of financial reasons and comfort, then it can lead to, an existential crisis really in a couple of years when you realize I hate getting up in the morning because I have to go to work.
Exactly. And the fact is, you just gotta know yourself, what makes you happy. If you're happy with 9 to 5 job, Don't let anyone tell you that, oh, you don't want that, you want to do this crazy thing. No, if you're super happy, if you're happy about life, Gary Vaynerchuk always says, if you're happy, you're killing it, right? Some people, if they were doing a business, their own business, they would absolutely hate it, right? I really don't like the idea of going to an office 9 to 5 and having to, be in a specific place, having a boss and stuff like that. To me, I hate that idea. But other people need that structure, right? Some people told me that they really like the idea of having to go somewhere and do the work, and that they can leave it all behind and go come home, right? For me, oftentimes with a business, it goes on a lot longer than you pretty much expect it to, right? It's not a 9 to 5 thing. It can happen anytime. So you can kind of limit how much you do it, especially when it starts moving. But in the beginning stages, you're often working like really crazy hours whenever you can, dealing with stuff as it comes. So you gotta see what works for you. So yeah, we covered a lot in this video. If you have any comments or you want to share your own experience, leave it in the comments below, because that would be really useful for everyone and for us, and we'd love to hear what you're going through and what kind of views you have about jobs. I think we covered some helpful stuff. Ryan, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk. I think if you're struggling, especially if you're someone in your 20s and 30s, struggling to find what you want to do, we highly recommend him. He has an important piece of advice, and that is you're never too young to like start something new. So I think that's really important.
Or too old, he sometimes says.
Or too old.
Like, you got time. That's his go-to thing.
Yes, and I think what's important there is it gives you some leeway. It makes you realize that, yeah, there's some rope to work with here, right? I don't have to feel like I have to have everything together by the time I'm 30, right? Life is this process, and we have to be patient, and we have to realize that if we're miserable, we have the opportunity to make a change, and it could be at any age. It could be at 30, 40, 50, 60. If we want to start something new, we totally could do that.
Yeah, and just to give you guys an example, a quick example, you guys, most of you watching are probably, below 35. Some of you might be older, but if you're in your 20s, if you're in your early 30s, my parents came to Canada, this country, at 35, around that age, and they literally had to start from scratch, right? And they turned out really well, and they found jobs, and they, fed their family, and we never felt like we were missing anything financially. So definitely don't think that at 21 or 25 or 30, you have to have it all figured out. You really do have time, as Gary Vaynerchuk says. So keep that in mind. Don't stress it too much and be patient. And that's it for this video. Until next time, live authentically.